There we are. Welcome to the Embodiment Podcast, Yoga and Meditation channel. This show is for you if you see the body as more than a brain taxi. It's for people interested in coming home to the body as a holistic aspect of who we are and how we live. Episodes contain practical tips, exercises you can take away, and interviews with specialists from around the world. I'm your host for today, Karin van Manen, and with me on the show today is Andrew Cain. And I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's going to be fun because Andrew is an improviser and also a therapist, trainer, coach, mindfulness teacher who brings improv into all these fields, in which he has more than 20 years experience. He brings mindfulness to improv and improv to mindfulness. Yes, there's something called mindful improv, I discovered when I was researching Andrew's work a bit more. And he's also a graduate of the Embodied Facilitator course, which is where we met, actually. And from my own personal experience of Andy's work, he is great fun, very skilled, and particularly very skilled at bringing embodiment into his work as well, which is, of course, what we're all about.
Thank you, Karin. I was just waiting for a moment to get in and say hello. Thank you, Karin.
Yeah,
it's a very nice introduction.
Long intro, but there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot you do. And as I was just saying when we were having a chat before, you could probably be on any of our channels with your experience. And often the first thing we ask our guests is like, how did you get into embodiment, mindfulness, in your case also improv? What were your your first steps, your first reasons to delve into it?
There might be different routes for each one. I've been exploring all of them for a while. And the main thing about me is my background was very academic. So I came from exactly the opposite end of the spectrum, you might say. Lots of studying, lots of sitting still, and very stuck in my head a lot. And yet I always found a release through movement in the body. So I remember just the other day, a little habit I used to have, even as a teenager, I'd be studying French or something, and I used to remember 20 words, and then I'd always have a shower, even though I didn't need one, but I just found that I didn't have the vocabulary for it at the time, but I used to say, oh yeah, I do that, and it helps the learning soak in. And I realize now that it was the physical stimulation of instead of just sitting, going through my list, that I was unconsciously finding a way back to body and sensation. So that's going way back. I did yoga, maybe was perhaps my first introduction to a more formal embodiment practice. Found that really helpful. I did 5 rhythms, which I found absolutely terrifying and weird. Love it now, but just coming from my background. And meditation, I've been interested in almost as long, again, I can even as a teenager remember looking up books and things on meditation.
That was the only way to learn about it.
I was going to say that sounds so antiquated. I went to the library and I asked them if they had any books on this thing. So all of them in various ways, probably for sort of 15 years or more, I've practiced in those ways, and improv for maybe the last 10 years, something like that.
Cool.
So it's been a long journey, I would say, for me.
Yes, and as I said in the intro, your work is a lot of fun, and fun might not usually be a word associated with things like mindfulness, meditation, and therapy. So how do you bring the fun into your work? How does that work for you? Where's the link? Mindful improv.
Yeah. So I think there's a great joy in connection. And so in improv, people often think it's about someone being, an individual being clever or good. But for me, certainly, I find the most nourishing and rewarding forms of the practice are a shared creation. And that only happens when people can connect. And that only happens when people can come into themselves and relax and open up enough to be able to be open to what's happening. I know Martin Aylward talks about practicing being undemanding, undefended, and undistracted. And these are
nice.
Yeah, and this is what we're practicing in improv, right? Is that in a scene, for example, I'm not insisting that it goes my way just because I've got this idea. We're trying to let go of the gripping of like an agenda or an idea I might have, and to open up enough to let go of enough defenses to be influenced by, you know, in this case, Karin, what you might bring, and to go with that flow and to be undistracted enough to pay attention to what's here. Because if we can pay attention to what's here, something interesting will happen. And that for me is a much more interesting thing, is to find what's there and let that grow rather than to bring an idea from outside.
Yeah, that sounds like there's lots of mindfulness capacities in there, actually. Martin Aylward's also been on our podcast, if anyone wants to listen to that. But definitely, he talks a lot about embodied presence as well. And that came into my head, this idea of being really present with a situation. And I know, having done some improv with you as well, it doesn't really help to plan ahead, because that's kind of like a distraction. It kind of makes me often very unspontaneous, and there is this sense that just being really, really present and relaxed, and then something will come up that might be funny, might not be, it doesn't really matter, because something else will come from that.
Yes.
So
It's interesting you say that. There's something about the letting go of an outcome, which reminds me a lot of meditation practice as well. Like
exactly.
If you're practicing improv to go, oh, I'm going to be funny now, then you've kind of boxed yourself in before you've begun. And in the same way, in a meditation practice, if you're sort of trying to make a certain thing happen, you've already cut yourself off from the openness of the practice.
Yeah. And a lot of my teachers have talked about very similar things in relation to clowning as well as improv, that the link with meditation, and certainly Buddhist meditation, can also be to let go of the ego, maybe wanting to get it right, or wishing to be funny, can really get in the way of good clowning, for sure. Yes. Apparently, yes. I'm not a clown, and can also get in the way of a relationship or any kind of connection with another person, whether that be therapeutic or intimate relationships, friendships, parenting, and so on. So
yes, there's often a sense of something that's flowing through rather than something that we're inventing. Just like in a free dance might be a parallel, that if you're kind of thinking, oh, what dance move shall I do next? Then you're doing it top down rather than bottom up, of allowing whatever wants to happen to happen. And that's kind of what we're doing in improv as well, is relaxing enough to allow things to happen. So much of it is that yin side, I find, we sometimes say as well, the difference between discovery and invention. So invention is, I have an idea and I sort of trying to impose it. Discovery is noticing what's here right now, and like, where does that want to go?
Yeah. So it sounds like it builds a lot of sort of sensitivity to what's there in the moment. And how does the body come into that? How does embodiment help with that?
Well, I should get, you know what, Karin, I almost tripped myself up by saying how many ways in advance. I was going to say, is there one? Am I going to say two? I should just start listing them and we'll figure out how many ways afterwards. I think it's 3, but we'll find out. But I noticed that's the second time I've said, well, there are, and then I start counting, and then I'll probably think of another one in a minute. But some ways are, I think for me, often the most interesting improv is the non-verbal part. It's the most, certainly in my classes, we do a lot, which is non-verbal. So we're not speaking or just making sounds or something like that, because there's something so, when people tune in, there's something so beautifully recognizable about the things that happen. And that involves being, paying attention enough to what someone else is doing and allowing yourself to be impacted by it, and also tuning into your own reactions and what wants to happen, and having built a big enough comfort zone to be able to express it, which is often a learning stage for many people in improv. We're rather like my learning stage when I went to 5 Rhythms, for example, being quite restricted in how physically expressive I was able to be. It's learning to allow more space for that and to feel okay that if I make some funny movement or I express myself in a certain way, the world doesn't end. It's okay. So all of those ways help the improv work, and equally the practice of improv feeds back into all those things of noticing each other, noticing ourselves, coming into the present, and building freedom of expression.
Oh, that sounds so good.
Did you count how many ways that were? I think maybe it was 4. I'm not sure.
I was so deep into my listening with my whole body, I didn't count.
Golden rule. Never say in advance how many ways there are. Yes. Let us not count the ways.
Yeah. That's reminded me actually of my my main Buddhist meditation teacher.
Yes.
Is very funny actually, and he never really prepares much of his teaching. I think he there's a theme to a retreat, right. And then he seems to improvise a lot and tells a lot of jokes, and he spends a lot of his time telling us to not be so rigid, like we'll all be sitting there as very good meditation students,
right,
very still, and he'll suddenly go, relax, just stop putting on this rigidity, move a little bit, be normal.
Right, yes.
And once he said, which I loved, because I was already into embodiment and I'd done some improv. He said, it'd be really good for all you Western students. You're so serious about meditation to, before you meditate, to do something silly, maybe like take some clothes off, throw them around the room, throw yourself on the floor, and then meditate. Like, stop doing it so structured and controlled, because it doesn't relate to daily life. He was kind of linking it to being more spontaneous and present in daily life.
Yes, right. And that's been a learning for me recently in my meditation practice, to enjoy it. It's like sometimes I have a habit of turning things into kind of another job. Oh yeah, brush my teeth, do my meditation, lift some weights, do some yoga, and to miss the joy of savoring the moment. And for me, certainly that's really helped my meditation practice recently, is to remember to enjoy it and to savor it, and for it to bring pleasure. We can often miss that, can't we, in the sometimes very serious world of meditation, it all gets a bit.
And I think a lot of the Asian teachers I've had kind of say, we do take it very seriously in the West, and often, particularly where I've trained in Bhutan, it's not always so serious. It's a little bit more relaxed, and that I think that then helps also with the transfer to life, which is what a lot of our embodiment work is about like learning some mindfulness or embodied awareness, and how can we take that into our life. So how would you kind of say that mindful improv, or bringing those types of skills into our capacity to be aware and present, how might that help us in our lives?
Well, I can say some of the ways it's helped me, which has helped me in all my work, I would say, and my life. I've got a lot better. So I teach improv. I also run leadership courses and do one-to-one coaching. And in all of those, a bit like you were saying with your meditation teacher, there's something so magical about seizing a moment. And some of us come with like our plans of the ways we think things ought to be, and so on. And yet the most powerful teaching is sometimes catching what's there, what's just in the air at that moment. And I've got a lot better at that. And that's often accompanied by laughter, but it's not jokes. It's never jokes. I don't really tell jokes, but it's just the joy of capturing something in the moment. I mean, for example, we were laughing a few minutes ago. I was laughing anyway, I don't know, about the habit I caught myself in of trying to say how many points I was going to make before I even knew. And just capturing that, for me, that's a joyful little moment of realization. And it provokes laughter and joy. And improv's helped me with that. It's helped me a lot with coaching. It's helped me a lot with training in other subjects. And my meditation practice has helped my improv as well, and helped all of that too.
Yeah, no, it's just a quote from John Kabat-Zinn came to mind when you said that. There's sometimes the richest thing is just right there in the moment. He said, like, if we're just on autopilot, or maybe following this plan, we miss loads of life that might be happening around us, opportunities for joy maybe, or pleasure, connection, because no, I'm on this line of
Yes,
thinking, kind of more controlled.
yes, and the opportunities for discovery as well, because of course, when we have a plan, and I love a plan, like
yeah, me too, but that's what I've had to unlearn almost.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great thing.
Much.
It's a great thing to do, and also to be able to let go of. I think we need to have both. Just, I suppose that there's like there's a lot of richness in paradox. So a similar one might be to have a regular, a solid meditation practice, but then also not to take it too seriously and to have a lightness around it, sort of having both of those at the same time. And yeah, because if we have a plan, great, but that plan was made with the information that we had at the time, if we use an analogy of a journey. But once we've started, there's already new information. Like, even if we've started a coaching call, we've started a yoga class, we've started a corporate training session, already new things have happened. And if we just like, no, at 10:45, this thing has to happen, we might have missed a beautiful opportunity there to try something else, to go somewhere else. Yeah, so for me, it's that paradox of being bold in a plan, and also being willing to drop it at a moment's notice if there's something better.
Yeah, and I think it used to cause me a lot of stress to be too attached to the plan. And I'm getting better, but it also strikes me generally in life, this is of course true, that everything is impermanent and we don't really know whether we'll wake up tomorrow or not. We don't really know whether the sun will rise. We think it will. And with the pandemic, when we're recording this, we're still in the pandemic. There's so many unknowns. So it sounds like a really good training to cope with life's ever-changing surprises.
We have to keep learning to let go and to come back into the moment. As you say, in life that happens anyway, because things are different. John Lennon says, like, life is what happens while you're busy making other plans, right?
Yeah.
It's like that. It's like, okay, this is my plan. I think Mike Tyson said, they say your plan is great. Everyone has a plan until you get punched in the face. Is a brutal metaphor, but plans are, what do you say? Plans are, we have to, planning is really helpful, but we have to be willing to let go of it. And that's not easy for many of us, and it can cause a lot of stress. Is there a, Karin, you know better than me, is there, you might know the source better than me, let go or be dragged? Some famous Buddhist person said it.
Yeah, I've heard that one, but I don't know where that's from either.
Right, yes, the same idea of, isn't it, of we do have to let go and to start afresh. Constantly, which is, of course, is what we're doing in a meditation practice too. It's part of what meditation's teaching us, is say we've got distracted, right? And then we've realized, it's like, well, what are we going to do in that moment? Are we going to spend the next 10 minutes getting frustrated and beating ourselves up? Or are we going to go, okay, start again with a joyful mind? And the same happens in improv, that we create something and we let it go. We create something and we let it go, which can be a great practice for life.
Yeah, that's true as well, because improv is very much a live art form, isn't it? It's not something generally that's recorded to become a film or a series, or it's it happens, we do it, and then it's done, and that it's unique, and it will never be repeated in exactly the same way.
Yes, there's something magical about that. I mean, you can see it online, and if people are interested, you can look it up and see performances. But there's something extra special about being in the room on the night and it being this one thing that only these people will share.
Yeah.
You mentioned impermanence. That's the nature of the art form.
Yeah.
The impermanence of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't really thought of that till right in this moment.
There we go. We're discovering stuff. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. What about when, you know, we're both talking about, you know, meditation can be joyful, and improv sounds like a lot of fun. We might have a little demo in a moment, dear listeners, so stay tuned. I also wanted to ask you, like, a lot of people that come to you, I'm sure, as a therapist and a coach, might not be very happy. Presumably they're stressed or depressed or anxious, and it can be really hard to meditate when you're in that state, which I've also experienced myself from time to time. And and they might not, you know, if I say, well, meditation can be fun, or we should, I don't really like the word should, but we can find fun in it. If they're like, I don't know, I you know, I've had students that have said, I haven't been joyful for so long, I don't know how to do it. How would you approach that with these practices?
Well, few things, and this isn't advice for everybody, it's just some of my experiences, was that I found, certainly in times when I've been emotionally struggling, I've found it very beneficial. I guess my habit was to distract myself away from the sadness, away from the stress, and I found a practice of turning towards it kindly very helpful, because it was the opposite to my coping mechanism, which was trying to avoid it. So I found meditation helpful at those times, but in that specific way. And I think around joy and pleasure, we can't force it. It's like falling asleep or something. Like if you try too hard, you're just going to jam yourself up. It's like, oh, I'm feeling really down, so I'm going to have some fun. Then you're already might be getting yourself a bit stuck in that way. And so we spend a lot of time in improv taking the pressure off, like taking off all the shoulds, all the things about how we should be, and how people often come with a story about how they should be feeling a certain way to come to an improv class. They think they have to feel really like happy and extroverted and lively. And I repeat it in every single class to encourage people to bring that they're welcome however they are. And this is a practice of bringing ourselves into connection and allowing something to grow from that. And when we can take the pressure off and allow ourselves to be human and be there, then that can be very healing, and joy can happen when we've kind of relaxed around it and allowed ourselves to open up to ourselves, like how we are, and as a result to open up to possibility of, oh, you know, what could happen now. So I wouldn't recommend it necessarily as a therapeutic practice. I think there's, just to say, I mean, there can be yeah, you could ask if someone was interested, they might want to ask the teacher and say, hey, this is where I am right now. Is this going to work? So the teacher can look after you.
I think the word possibility is good, isn't it? When I've been depressed, I've kind of had that sense that there was no possibility of ever being happy again, which wasn't true, luckily.
Yes.
But that's, it seems to be very much a closed embodiment for me, where I just want to hide under the duvet and almost like locking myself in that place. So gently opening to possibility might be the first step in a
yes, a lot of things we struggle with, emotional states that we struggle with, come with a lot of certainty. This is how things are. This is how I am. This is how they're always going to be. That's it. It's fixed. And that's part of what keeps us stuck, right? So like cognitive therapy, part of that is trying to loosen those mental shackles that we put on ourselves. Other approaches around that are bringing a kind curiosity, as you might do in a meditation practice, and practicing bringing a kindness and curiosity to what is in an opening up to what could be and what might happen, which is interestingly, there's a kind of a letting go, right? Because when we're in a difficult state, part of us has decided, no, that's it, this is how it is. And actually to let go of that belief, that's another letting go, right? And coming back to, this is how I am in this moment. I wonder what will happen in 20 minutes. I wonder what will be happening next. What's happening now?
And questioning, because we say things like, I am sad, or I am anxious, and I'm trying to reframe that for myself as I feel sadness, or I'm experiencing a depression today, but it's not who I am, which again is a big part of mindfulness practice, is not identifying with the feelings, because we know ultimately that they're going to come and go, unless we keep basically recreating them in our minds all the time by thinking the catastrophizing thoughts or whatever.
Yes, and the identity thoughts, right? Like, oh, I'm the kind of person who is this or that or the other. And that's clear from the outside, it's clearly not true. When we've looked back on our own lives, or if we see other people, it's clearly not true. And of course, at the time, it appears true. And it's a prison we lock ourselves into. And a practice of curiosity and is part of what can help open things up. And it also savoring joy is something we've kind of touched on a little bit, haven't we? Which I know is part of meditation that's is mentioned, although perhaps isn't always at the fore. And it's certainly true in improv that we are deliberately creating joy. We're setting that as part of the aim. And that can be a very empowering thing. First of all, for the experience of, for example, having a great experience in that moment, that's already great, like a state shift. But then also the trait shift, like the characteristic shift of being, just knowing you have the ability to do that. can be very empowering and protective.
Yeah.
Have you come across, by the way, Karin, I know you're familiar with Shinzen Young. Have you come across Stephanie Nash? She teaches laughter meditations with Shinzen Young.
Oh, no, I haven't. Oh, that
right. Yes.
good.
So there's videos of her teaching on YouTube, and so at Shinzen Young's retreats, that's a component of the retreat, is a laughter practice, a laughter meditation. And she's got, there are some of her on the Right Mind app. She's got a couple of recordings on there, but certainly on YouTube there are also one of her longer practices. And these two can be a wonderful practice. But the healing power of laughter is an important thing. It's not to be dismissed as trivial. The physical release and the reset for our nervous system can be very powerful and very, very healing. We've all had this experience informally, right? You've kind of been getting more and more tense and worried about something, and then something happens, and then you just have an uncontrollable kind of laughter comes up, right? And that's the natural body release. But we don't have to wait until the Coca-Cola bottle has been shaken like mad and then kind of opened and it all goes everywhere.
Yeah, right.
We can bring laughter and joy and fun into our lives deliberately, and to know that and to take that as an important thing. There's a way English language trips us up. I don't know if it's the same in Dutch, Karin, because when we say serious, it means both important and not a laughing matter. Right? It has those two meanings, and yet laughter and fun and joy can be serious in the sense of important. They can be important things in someone's life. They're part of a healthy life. Particularly in lockdowns as well, I find a lot of, because there's been more isolation, and this I'm guessing this could continue to perhaps a gentler extent over the longer term. This has led to people laughing less and having less creative joy. We know that we laugh, I think it's 30 times more in the company of others than we do by ourselves. That's why a comedian wants to play a packed venue. People just laugh more when they're together. If you think of a venue with a large venue,
really
it's sort of
infectious, isn't it?
Yes. It's a social thing, and it's a very bonding thing. That's why friends laugh together. Most of the time, it's not because anybody said anything funny. It's because of a shared moment or a memory, or just a kind of a signal of, yes, we share this common humanity. So that connection and social support for me is a very big part of why I do the work, why I teach the improv. That you can do improv in a few different ways. Like you can do it a bit like dancing. You can dance to be on a show, and that's great, like Strictly Come Dancing in the UK or elsewhere. Or you can dance because you enjoy it and it feels healthy and nourishing. And certainly I'm more interested in the improv for the sake of it being healthy and nourishing and joyful, whether or not anybody else watches it.
Yeah.
kind of don't care. I always say to my, my classes, I say, if you had a good time, I kind of don't care whether, anybody came to watch or not. It doesn't matter. If we're having a good time, we've done something important right there.
Yeah, I love that reframe, and I've laughed quite a lot this week as it happens, and it's been really good because it's been a kind of really busy week, so that release has definitely been there. I noticed how good it was to be a bit hysterical,
Yes.
and remembering also like sometimes really difficult times in my life, like if someone's just died, family members just died, often jokes come out as well, which is partly maybe that gallows humor, as we say in English, but I think it's probably also a natural way of easing the pain between people, and sometimes it's also that nervous laughter can be a stress response, of course, but I think that was different, like remembering sort of joking with my uncle when somebody died and stuff like that. It can be really
There's
helpful.
a wonderful film which is now free on YouTube called Laughology, which is a documentary about the stories of a true story of the man who's lost his laugh, and he goes in search of his laugh, but on the way he's basically exploring the science behind laughter and the social signaling and the health benefits, and like what an interesting thing laughter is. And it's mainly not about jokes, it's mainly performing so many other functions, and is shared with many other mammals laugh, even though they have no words. That's how we know it's not about verbal humor.
Cool.
Yes, well worth looking up.
Well, there's a tip for everybody. I shall follow that one up. Shall we play a game?
Yes, let's do that. We thought it might be nice. So I know listeners to the podcast like to have things they can do, so let's do this. So if anyone listening, we've not prepared this.
It's improv, isn't it? So
exactly. So let's see what happens. So if anyone wants to play this at home, it goes like this, that it's a practice of shared creation and letting go. And it goes like this. One person will say, remember when we went to, and then name a place, often a country. And the second person will say, yes, and when we were there, and say a thing that we did. And after that, we're just going to add on each time, yes, and then we, yes, and then we, yes, and then we, and just see where it goes. And it doesn't have to go anywhere. We're practicing letting go of our plan of where it would go and seeing where it goes. So let's have a go.
Letting go.
Karin's having a little wiggle, which is good because sometimes that being loose in our body helps us be loose in our mind. Would you like to start, Karin? Or
yes.
Yes.
Andy, do you remember that time we went to Bulgaria?
Yes, and when we were there, we went to a restaurant and ate some goulash.
Yes, and there were some very strange things in the goulash. We weren't sure if we should ask the waiter about.
Yes, and then we asked the waiter what was in it.
Yes, and then we found out it was a certain part of a cow's anatomy that was a bit intimate.
Yes, and then we decided to take it home and frame it as a souvenir of our trip.
Yes, and then my Aunt Gertrude came and visited.
Yes, and then she said, oh my goodness, I've been to that cafe.
I ate cow's balls too. Yes, and then she said, I ate cow's balls too.
Yes, and then we decided that we would all go back to that cafe with Aunt Gertrude to enjoy the experience again.
Yes. And then feels like it's the end.
Hooray! The end. Great. Yeah, great. Cool. Nice. How was that, Karin?
Yeah, I got really into it. It was fun. Yeah, really fun. I don't think I was searching too much to I just went with whatever came up.
Yes.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yes. I'm guessing we're both vegetarian. Is that the case, Karin?
I
not
have
necessarily.
not.
I was wondering
not,
if there was a squeamishness about that.
but,
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But I have been. But yeah, I was just cows don't even have balls. I've just realized. But
who knows? Who knows?
I was thinking of I think goulash, maybe not, but there's something like goat's balls curry or something. I think
Right,
that sort of half crossed my mind.
Right, yes, probably something like that. Yes, yeah. Our knowledge of Hungary, perhaps
I was thinking
lacking, but our creativity still in full force. I enjoyed the bit I enjoyed most was I said, oh yeah, we took it home and framed it on the wall. And then you said, yes, and then we invited our Aunt Gertrude around for dinner or something. And yeah. I just felt such a sense of yes, like that's so great. I just so enjoyed that momentum.
Yeah, I actually have she's died, but I had a great aunt, Gertrude, who was lovely and quite funny in her own way. So she might have appreciated that.
Yes.
And it's sometimes it's just playing a different game, isn't it? And the yes and is quite a popular thing in improv, I think, and also a good way to open to possibilities in life. I think to kind of consider what else, what else could we do? Yes, and what else?
And also to open to things where we feel a resistance. So when you said we went to Hungary, a part of my mind went, I don't know anything about Hungary. And then, so that's quite interesting, right? When we get given something, we're like, I had this kind of, it's like tensing up. I was like, oh, what am I going to do? And I thought, oh yeah, goulash, that's a Hungarian thing. So then, and I found a way to respond. And I think that kind of yes is also interesting, right? That not only a yes to things that are immediately feel good, but also a yes to it's cold today, or it's raining today, or I'm struggling with my meditation practice today. And okay, I'm struggling with my meditation today, and I'm going to be kind to myself while I'm doing it, and I'm going to thank myself for doing the practice even when it was hard. And that yes to difficult things is also very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think there's lots of practices around that, just to use words like yes or welcome.
Yes.
Got some in my book that I wrote with Mark, Embodied Meditation. Quick plug for that.
Yeah, which is excellent. I read it earlier this week.
Great.
You. Yes, I really enjoyed it, and lots of. It was a great, for me anyway. It was a great. Really helped me see like a broad perspective of different kinds of meditation, how they can serve different purposes, so different tools for different jobs. And also there's a whole bunch of super practical things of like, oh, if you want to do this, do that. If you want to do this, do that. So I really like that mix of a map and some practical things you can do straight away.
Brilliant. Thank you.
All right.
Bit shy now.
Oh, Karin's gone all shy. It's great. Really, really great book.
Yeah. I'm also thinking back to the saying yes to difficult things.
Yes.
There's a lot of stuff in neuropsychology, and Rick Hanson, the meditation teacher Rick Hanson's talked a lot about the negativity bias, how he says we're Velcro for the negative and like Teflon for the positive. Like good stuff we just goes through us very quickly, and it's the negative thing, the bad weather we latch on to, as it were. And sometimes that comes out in phrases like yes but, yes, okay, but and replacing that with yes and can be so useful as well. That it might be a bit hard, and maybe there's a
I can fully accept reality as it is, and this is my response, which is exactly what we practice in improv, right? That someone comes with what we call an offer, like welcome to my zoo or whatever it is. We have the first step is practicing the acceptance of, okay, we're in a zoo and this person owns it, even if that wasn't what I thought was going to happen. That's the first practice, and then the bringing something to that is our second practice. And yes, and like you were just mentioning, Karin, recognizing that we do tend to be inclined towards the negative, you might say, and cultivating a kindness is very much at the heart of improv, as it is in meditation, because we want people to be able to bring their full selves and to feel free and to be able to explore new areas safely. So it's interpersonally a crucial part of the container, but also better or whatever, just like meditation or whatever, and to notice that and to be kind towards that on the one hand, and also to deliberately cultivate a savoring of joyful things. So we will end every class with remembering the things that we enjoyed most from the class is the last 5 or 10 minutes, because often we've almost forgotten it, even though it was only an hour earlier. We've almost forgotten it, and then someone says, oh, I really liked it when this person did that was so funny. And everyone goes, oh yes, of course, and it all comes back. And so deliberately bringing that back, so that then regularly participants will sort of message and the next morning, and they've just kind of woken up laughing about something that we did the night before. Which, how wonderful to cultivate that savoring of joy and not let it just slip away.
That's apparently really important. For Rick Hanson studied this, or probably other people as well, but he says it only takes 10 to 30 seconds for the joyfulness to be kind of picked up by the nervous system and start to generate feel-good hormones and chemicals in the body. But often we don't give it the 10 seconds or 10 to 30 seconds. It's gone so quickly, and that reflection would integrate it into our system a bit more, so we get the full benefit. And when it feels good, and then we reflect on, oh, it feels good, that also then creates the neural pathways to start looking for the fun a bit more, remembering to look for joy and playfulness in our lives, so it starts to actually really change how we are in the longer term, not just in the moment of the improv workshop. Or
I think I'm more fun to be around than I was. You didn't know me before, Karin, but I think I've changed in that way, and I see many other people with an improv practice expanding in that way.
Yeah, I think so too. Great. So we've covered so many things, and I think we're getting sort of towards our full hour. So what do you have coming up in the way of things people can do with you in terms of getting a little bit into improv? And I also remember you saying you were the least likely improviser.
Yes, I sometimes
are a bit scared of it, you know. Maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, so it's, as I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, I sometimes call myself the world's least likely improviser, simply because I came from this very shy, very thinky, very academic, very disembodied background, and I'm quite introverted as well by nature. So yes, I'm not the kind of person most people imagine doing improv, and that's interesting to me because it's people like me are perhaps the people who could gain the most, because it's almost like a shadow area of ourselves that we can reclaim. So yeah, ways people can explore further. If you go to my website, which is playconnect.co.uk, playconnect.co.uk, a couple of videos of talks that I've done there, about 10-15 minutes. I want to sort of speak to that a little bit more about my ludicrously over planning background, and also the best thing, if you're interested, would be to come on a taster class. So it's called Letting Go of Right is my taster class, where we can begin to explore the patterns in our lives and the things that get in the way of us being free to expand into our joy and play and creativity, and to do some of it as well, so you can have a way through there. And so you'll come away with an understanding, some embodiment practices, and some embodiment practices to support your improv, and some real experience, and I'd say very high chance of having a good time as well.
Yeah,
I
echo that. I think I've done that one. I've done.
Yes, that was the one you came on.
Yeah,
yes, yeah.
It was really good fun. And if anyone is a bit scared of this, which I think I used to be, but I have got some theatre training, so it wasn't too bad. But I know some other people that have been to your workshop said it's because you don't seem to be super likely to be an improviser. They feel very comfortable with you, and I think very good at putting people at ease.
Yes, and that fear is telling us something. Fear is showing us, fear in the absence of danger is showing us where I sometimes say where our treasure is buried. That's like our shadow areas, like the parts of ourselves that we haven't traditionally ventured into. So if you get that feeling of, ooh, I'm interested in this, I'm drawn to it, and I feel afraid of it, then for me, that's a real sign of there could be something really valuable to reclaim there. That was certainly my experience of feeling drawn and afraid. Yeah, and that's exactly the stuff that we work with.
Great way of putting it. The playfulness, playing is such a great way to learn. I remember another podcast guest, Rafe Kelly, talking about play, and when we're playing, we learn really quickly, without overthinking it. It happens very spontaneously. So what better way to develop range in our embodiments and our mindfulness in daily life than playing. So you've also got some great blog posts on your site, I saw, and bits and pieces listeners can look at. And to conclude, just before we finish, you've just given a lovely quote actually, but do you have another tip or anything listeners could try at home or in their daily life to bring more of this kind of joy, improv mindfulness into their existence?
Well, what I would think, find some things to play and actually do it. So that game that Karin and I played, so easy, you can explain it in 15 seconds, and even adults can do it. And if you want the pro version, see if you can, with consent, borrow someone's child, because children will take you places far beyond your imagination and can be wonderful teachers of that. They're the experts at it. So yeah, play one of the games, yeah, if you can find a child to help you between about ages 5 and 11, then even better.
Yeah, I echo that. Children are awesome for that playfulness. Brilliant. Thank you so much, Andy. It was fun and a great pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you for having me.
Where's the stop?